Alright, welcome to my video for the 13.3 lesson, Graphing Proportional Relationships. Today's learning target is I can write and graph proportional relationships, and I can describe what a relationship is or is not proportional, and of course I can ask for help understanding. First thing you should do is get out your vocabulary packet, and we have one and only one vocabulary word today, and the vocabulary word is direct variation. And it is that x and y are proportional with a constant graph through 0, 0. And what I mean by constant graph is that your graph is a straight line. So when your graph is a straight line, it also has to go through 0, 0. Now, of course, when we have linear equations, the linear equation just has to be a straight line. It doesn't necessarily have to go through 0, 0. But when we're talking direct variation, then it has to be a straight line through the origin, which is 0, 0. The equation for direct variation, and we're going to talk about this some more, is y equals m times x. And m, of course, remember we talked about the other day, is slope. So you're always going to have slope times x, and this kind of equation is going to give you a graph that is a straight line that goes through the origin. Alright, you can now put the vocabulary packet away and get out your 13.3 notes packet. So direct variation is when two quantities, x and y, are proportional. The relationship can be represented by the direct variation equation, y equals mx, where m is a constant of proportionality, or otherwise we can talk about m being the slope. The graph of y equals mx is a line with a slope of m that passes through the origin, so just like we talked about on the vocabulary page. Alright, first example, and a lot of the examples today are going to be real life problems. The cost y in dollars to rent x video games is represented by the equation y equals 4x. Part A says to graph the equation. So what we do to graph that equation is I set up a little XY table. Now remember, because we're talking about renting video games, you can't rent -1 video games. So the first point that I would start with is 0, 1, and 2. So then if I put those numbers into my equation, y equals 4 times x, well 4 times 0 would be 0, 4 times 1 would be 4, and 4 times 2, of course, would be 8. Those are the ordered pairs I want to graph, so of course 0, 0, over 1, up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, over 2, up 8, and of course those points fall in a straight line, and if you notice, they go through the origin. Now, part B says interpret the slope. Well, remember the slope is that number in front of the x. So my slope would be 4 for this one. Well, what does it mean in the relationship? Remember, it would be $4 per video game. Because remember, it's always y over x. My y is dollars, my x is video games. So it would be $4 per video game. Now it says, tell whether x and y are proportional. Well, if you notice, this is a straight line that goes through the origin. So I would say, yes, it is a straight line through the origin, which makes it a proportional relationship. Every video game that you rent will cost $4. That is a constant that is always going to be true for that equation. You can pause the video and do this one on your own. Alright, to check this one, it's very similar to the last one, except now you have the cost y in dollars to rent x movies is represented by the equation y equals 2x. So just like last time, I'm going to make an xy table, 0, 1, and 2. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 2 would be 4. Those ordered pairs I'm going to graph. And of course it makes a straight line. Interpreting the slope, well I know the slope is 2, but that of course means $2 per movie, because remember it's y over x. Now telling whether those are proportional, yes they are, because it is a straight line through the origin. And the constant is 2 because it costs $2 per movie to rent them. All right, next example says, the daily wage Y in dollars of a factory worker is proportional to the number of parts X assembled in a day. A worker who assembles 250 parts in a day earns $75. Well, part A says write an equation that represents the situation. Well, the equation we want to write is in the form y equals m times x. But the problem is, I don't know what the constant is. I don't know what m is. But what they do give me is an x and a y. The y that they give me, because remember y is my daily wage in dollars, is 75. And then the x that they give me is x is the number of parts assembled. They give me 250 parts. So I know m times 250 is going to give me 75. Well, I want to solve this for m, so then I can write my equation. So I'm going to divide by 250 on both sides, which means my m is going to equal 0.3. So that means my equation would be y equals 0.3x. So what that means in this situation is that you are getting 30 cents per part that you are assembling each day. So now part B says, how much does a worker earn who assembles 300 parts in a day? Well, I would fill 300 in for x. So I would fill in 0.3 times 300. So that means that the worker is going to make $90 for making 300 parts in one day. Example 2b is similar to that one, but a little different. The cost y in dollars to go paintballing is proportional to the number of hours x that someone plays. Glenda played paintball for 2 hours and paid $8. Write an equation that represents this situation. So of course the equation I want to write is y equals m times x. Well, unfortunately I don't have my m, but they do give me a y and they give me an x. The y that they give me is in dollars, and they give me $8 is what they paid. The m, of course I don't know. The x, remember x is the number of hours that somebody played, is $2. So if I want to solve this for m, I would divide by 2, and I get that my m is 4. That means that I pay $4 per hour to go paintballing. Well, now part B says if someone paid $24, how many hours did they go paintballing? Well, that means I now have my y, and I want to figure out my x, how many hours I went paintballing. So if I divide by 4 on both sides, that means that the person went paintballing for 6 hours, and that's why they had to pay $24 to go paintballing. You can pause the video and do this one on your own. All right, to check this one again, I want to write the equation here. So they give me a y is $20, because it's $20 for y. We don't have my m, but I know that I babysat for 5 hours. So I would divide by 5 on both sides, which means my m is equal to 4, which gives me the equation 4 times x, and that means you're getting paid $4 per hour to babysit. Now, how many hours were the parents gone if the babysitter made $44? Well, just like the last one, 44 gets replaced by y because y is your dollars. And I want to solve this for x. So I would divide by 4 on both sides, which means that the parents were gone for 11 hours. All right, example 3. At a track event, the distance y in meters traveled by student A in x seconds is represented by the equation y equals 7x. The graph shows the distance traveled by student B. Which student is faster? Well, if you look at that equation for student A, you can see the number in front of the letter x is 7. That means that student A is traveling at 7 meters per second because, remember, it's y over x and it'd be meters per second. Now for student B, I have to use this graph over here. And luckily they give me 2 points and I need to find the slope of those 2 points. One thing to notice is that this y here is not going by 1s, it's actually going by 8s. So when I rise up, that means I'm rising up 8, 16, 24. My x-axis is going by 1, so that means my run is 3. Well, 24 divided by 3 means that this student is traveling at 8 meters per second. So which student is faster? Well, it would be student B, and they are traveling 1 second faster per second. So 1 meter faster per second. Now for part B, it says graph the equations for student A in the same coordinate as student B. Well, student A, remember, had this equation. And I'm going to make an XY table. So 0, 1, 2, 7 times 0 would be 0. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 would be 14. So for student A, graphing on the same coordinate plane would be 0, 0, over 1, up 7, so a little bit below where that one was, over 2, up 14. Student B is going to look like that. Now, when you compare the steepness of the graphs, you can see that student B has a steeper line. What does that mean in the context of the problem? Well, that means student B is faster than student A. All right, you can pause the video and do this one on your own. To check this one, we have a 4-person ski lift. The distance in y meters that a 4-person ski lift travels in x seconds is represented by this equation, y equals 2.5x. So that means the 4-person ski lift is traveling 2.5 meters per second. Well, the graph shows the 2-person lift. So I'm going to find the slope for the 2-person lift. I'm going to choose this point and this point, rising up 4, because remember it's going by 2, so 2, 4, over 2 gives me 4 over 2, which of course is the slope of 2 meters per second. So which ski lift is faster? Well, actually the 4-person lift is faster, but not by very much. It's only a half a meter per second faster. So now to graph both of those equations on the same one, well, I already have the 2-person, now I need the 4-person, so their equation is 2.5 times x. I make an xy table, 0, 1, 2, 2.5 times 0 is 0, 2.5 times 1 is 2.5, and 2.5 times 2 would be 5. So now to graph that on the same graph, 0, 0, over 1, up 2.5, over 2, up 5, you can see that the 4-lift person's line is a little bit steeper. So again, comparing the steepness of the graphs, 4-person is steeper than the 2-person. Well, what does this mean in the context? So 4-person is faster. All right, you can log into bigideasmath.com. We'll get started on the homework together. Question number 1 says, what point is on the graph of every direct variation equation? Of course, it is the origin, 0, 0. Number 2, which best describes why the equation does or does not represent a proportional relationship? Well, this, of course, does not, because you do have the y equals mx, but you have that plus 3 on the end, and that's not a direct variation equation. So that means this one and this one are eliminated. And the reason that it is not a proportional is because this graph does not pass through the origin. Number 3, tell whether x and y are in a proportional relationship. Well, if you notice, it is a straight line, but it does not pass through the origin. So that would be the correct choice for this one. And then if x and y are proportional, identify the equation that represents the relationship. Well, x and y are not proportional, so that would not be an option for that situation. Thanks for watching.